I just can't help it, folks. I get excited every time I hear that music because I know it's time for another episode of the Rec Poker Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Reed. Thanks for joining me today. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Website Amp and Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. So I'm coming with you today with an Rec Room edition of the Rec Poker Podcast. We have a few different Rec Poker podcasts that we put out throughout the month. Once a month, one of our premium members gets together with a member of the Wrecking Crew to talk poker. And this month, we're featuring Taylor Moss, who's having a conversation with Chris Jones. Taylor, you may recall, recently became the inaugural champion of Rec Poker Marek Madness, our heads up ladder bracket. So congratulations to you, Taylor, for that. And he's going to share some knowledge with Chris Jones, who he defeated in the championship, I should say, although this was recorded beforehand, so there's no bad blood in the booth this week. I think you'll get a lot out of this audio podcast, but we do release the video versions on the website for free. Just go to rec.poker and check them out there, or you can go to the Rec Poker Community YouTube page and see all our free videos there, all the podcasts, some other fun stuff that we put out, and please do subscribe if you go to check that out. Other than that, I guess I'll just introduce Taylor Moss and Chris Jones for this behind-the-scenes look at Taylor's coaching sample. Enjoy, everyone.
Hey, how's it going? Taylor Moss here. I put together this quick little coaching sample. I sat down with Chris Jones, or as you may know him, 5x5. We just did a quick little database review, some hand histories, talked over a few things. I took that, kind of spliced it up into a short little video to give everyone a little taste of how I approach poker coaching. Hope you enjoy. All right, Chris. So we're going to do a quick session here. You sent me, it looks like 7,400 hands from tournaments. So this is stuff that you played on ACR, correct?
Yeah, it's all ACR. It's been mostly June. I think this is mostly June, basically, and had some pretty bad runs and some good runs. So It'll be interesting to hear how we talk about all this.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, 7,400 hands isn't like a huge sample size, but we can start to see some trends that are going on. So just high level right away going through this. VPIP, PFR, and raise first in, as well as your 3-bet all are like almost exactly what you want it to be. So you're doing essentially what I would say great there, especially considering this all-in adjusted big blind per 100. Like, to be straightforward with you, like, you're crushing. Like, this is excellent to see. Now with 7,400 hands and playing tournaments, like, this doesn't always just directly relate to printing money. If you win one tournament, it makes up for it. But if you haven't won a tournament in this stretch, which is very likely, it may not be super high ROI.
Right.
Few other things that I like to look at right away. C-bet flop, 70% of the time. Great number there. Especially given your C-bet flop success. So 70% of the time you're C-betting, and 45% of that you're just getting a fold right away. That is translating directly to that like win percent that you have. So that's doing great. In terms of aggression, you get much less aggressive on the turn. It's the same thing I do, unfortunately.
I know.
But this number should be higher. So one of the first things I would say is we should, whenever there's favorable turn cards, really consider that second barrel.
And it's good that you point that out, because it's something that I feel I have such a strong tendency to, when I have value, bet flop, check turn, bet river, because I don't have the nuts, and there's all this, like, I think that's a really common line for players too. So I recognize that's something in my game, and I really need to work on my turn play a lot. So
yeah, and next thing after that is aggression frequency, and that kind of translates to a lot of these pieces. So your C-bet turn is a little bit low, which is going to drive down that aggression frequency. you'll see high stake players be at like 3.0 in terms of aggression factor. So it's definitely things that we want to like go after. I'd like to see this higher from you because I know you can be more aggressive. I think this is one thing that if we'll talk about one other piece in a little bit here, but start c-betting that turn a little bit more. It doesn't have to be crazy amount, but slightly more. You're going to get that aggression factor up, and it's going to start increasing that already high win rate a little bit more. The other piece is this 1.03 that you have. It's in the big blind. First off, big blind, like you're crushing it. You're only losing 6.33. Like normal players is negative 100, but you are very, very passive from the big blind.
Yeah. I was talking to Steve about this the other day. It's like the just the language of defending the big blind makes me like puts me in a mindset of, oh, I'm defending, so I have to sort of get into the shell and defend this big blind rather than like I can't turn the tables and I'm not check raising enough. I'm not. There's a lot of things I'm not doing, and I think the big blind. It's really interesting. These are both things I've been thinking about. Is like my big blind play and my turn play are both areas where I'm not playing great.
Yeah.
So.
And the two areas from your big blind play that are going to benefit the most by being more aggressive is 3-betting more. This 6% 3-bet from the big blind is quite small. So I would task you to do some like hand histories. And I'd do this if we were doing like a little bit longer of a session here, or if we did like another one after this. But like look at some big blind plays where the raise came from later position and we had that opportunity to 3-bet, because that's going to be a great spot for you to start picking up this number. Just really take advantage of those essentially wide positional ranges that your opponents are going to have.
Yeah.
And then part number 2, I don't have the stat readily available in here, but I did some kind of checking on my own, is just check raising flops. When we get heads up after defending our big blind, almost everyone, and myself included, does not check raise the flop enough. And that's another reason why this like aggression factor is just kind of low.
Yep.
The other thing that I saw, call river efficiency. Do you know what this is?
Yeah. Basically means I'm a calling station on the river.
Well, you're a calling station and you're doing it really effectively.
Right.
So this is a ratio where if you're at 1.0, you are exactly making up enough money when you call on the river and are correct for every time that you call on the river and are incorrect. So being higher than 1.0, every time you call on the river, you are ahead way more often than when you're behind. So this is a really tough number to like take and translate to an exact action plan of how to change things, but it can mean like a couple of things. One, it means that you are checking with better hands to try and induce bluffs, which is sometimes good, but sometimes you miss out on value instead of betting yourself. 2, it could mean that you're folding too much when you are actually ahead in those like thin spots. So you may only be calling when you know that you're ahead. And then the other one, I think it relates too much to the first one, but it's essentially like you're not betting enough of your value hands or raising enough of your value hands. So we could probably find a lot of examples of these, and right. Plus it is a small sample size. Like we're talking 7,000 hands in tournament poker. Like how often of those 7,000 did we see a showdown is like a decent point to start at. Then how many of those did you call? Right. So if this was 1.5, 1.7, I probably wouldn't be too concerned about it, but it being 2.4 even over the small sample makes me think that there's like some improvements that you could probably make there in terms of your river play. Yeah. All right. And then I had one more thing, and I thought this is kind of the biggest piece that I found, and I wanted to save it for last. But what the heck are you doing from middle position, Chris? right? So you're at like call it 10.5 win rate. Your adjusted big blind per 100 in the point where we have the biggest sample size is really low here for middle position.
Yeah. That's I have noticed too, like some of this, and I think what this is probably indicative of, if I think of sort of middle position play, is that I am leveling myself middle position. I mean, I actually don't know if this plays out, but I think I'm leveling myself more. You'll also notice here that I am, although that's maybe fair, but I'm folding to 3-bets a lot less. And I think that what I'm thinking is, they think I'm weak, so they're 3-betting me weak, so I'm going to call or I'm going to raise, and I think I get myself into trouble with marginal spots where I'm getting involved in big pots where I'm not trusting the fact that people are playing maybe more honest than I think they are when we get into that late position sort of leveling.
Perfect. You nailed it. That's exactly what the stats are saying. Like, you're doing wrong. So your raising percents by position are, good. If we go down this route, and I was trying to be nitpicky, I think 16.5 for raise first in from EP is good. Middle position of 24.6 I think is too high. I'd like to lower that a little bit. Cutoff is close to being good. I maybe would raise this up a little bit more, and then the button I would also raise up a little bit more. So this one you can probably go to like 50. This one I think like 35 would be good. Like I said here, probably like 22-ish, and then the 16.5 is good. So you're not too far off in terms of middle position, but you're folding to 3-bets only 48% of the time. And I'll pull up some hands here, but like early position, you can have that much lower because you're playing a tighter range. Right. I think if we had a bigger sample size from this and you kept these trends up, we would see similar troubles if we tried to narrow in on early position when you face a 3-bet. But typically you're just slightly more protected because you have that better range. Here you're adding in those hands going from the 16.5 to 24.5. And you're just not folding when people put aggression on you. Kings is fine. King 7 suited, raise, 3-bet. This is just a really easy fold.
Yeah, it should be. Damn it.
Yeah. King Queen, jam. King Queen offsuit versus jam.
Should be folding this.
Yep. Yeah, this is a pretty easy fold. All right, let's get this back up here. 2, and then jammed.
I mean, I better be folding this too. Ugh. Oh, this guy. Yeah, I know this guy. He can do this so wide.
I mean, I'm looking at this should be the same stats that you're seeing. This is really tight.
Yeah.
Like, this is just a snap fold. This is one that I ran because I wanted to see what should you be calling with in this spot versus a 25 big blind spot. So if you're in this spot, you can change your cards, but you have to do the bottom of your range. Like what's the bottom that you're calling with?
If I'm playing well or whatever, for a 25 big blind shove into my 50 big blind stack, boy, I better be 9s is close. I would say 10s I'm calling. Ace. Yeah. Ace queen suited, maybe ace jack suited is probably the bottom of what I should be doing here.
What about king queen suited?
King
No?
queen suited, I'm folding.
Okay.
Should be.
See, if you stop and think, you just crush what you should be doing, right? You nailed that so close on to like what ICMizer says you should be doing. But in this spot, because you got into this leveling war in your head, you found a negative 1.3 big blind spot to take.
Yeah. I do not like getting 3-bet from middle position, apparently.
Yeah. I had flagged a few more in. I mean, we don't need to belittle the point, but
No, it's good.
That was it.
Let's
Here's this one. It was the exact same A7, and I thought I saw something twice, but 2 big blinds. Then this guy goes to 7.2, and it gets back to you.
I mean, I didn't jam this, did I?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
God.
That's the worst option, right? Calling is the second worst option, and folding is the best. Yeah.
Which table? Let me see these table. Which table is this?
What do you-
Okay. This may have been a tilty moment.
Yeah. And a lot of this is, just cut that out. Tilty moments get affected the most when you've been 3-bet or there's been aggression against you, right?
Right.
So, like, all of a sudden, like, maybe something happened before, and now you open up here, and then someone 3-bets you, and you're just like, well, you jerk. It brings out this bad side view. I mean, this is essentially the same spot as I closed out of the ICMizer, but the same thing that we were looking at that other hand. Like, what should you be calling this 3-bet with? And you get to probably slightly wider range in terms of just having to call the 3-bet instead of the jam, but really not that much wider. And
I'm fairly, and this is something I also, on like the mental game side of things, I'm fairly certain, because I think I recognize this table. I'm fairly certain that Bulgaru has a big stack because they called me in a ridiculous spot to get that big stack and got there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then one of the things that I think I'm very capable of is like, well, if they call me light, then I should do the same to them because I need to get those chips back and I deserve it, or some sort of like all those sort of like weird tilty emotions that
pick better hands to do that with. It doesn't always have to be just the first one that gets dealt back to you. Right. I would much rather you jam pocket 5s here than A7 suited. And it's not even close. Like, from someone who doesn't play pocket 5s like the way you do. Like a hand like pocket 5s I'd rather have. Just because so likely dominated with
so easily dominated. Yeah, there's so many bad things that can happen here. The times that you actually make your flush are so rare, and that's really what you're hoping for. If you get called on this jam, that's like the only sure winner is a bunch of clubs. So
right, like, and even if you decided to call this instead of jamming, like what describe a flop to me that like you're happy with, and there really isn't. And if that's
A7-7,
yeah, okay, right. You go down the routes of like, okay, well, it has to be either 2 7s or an ace and a 7, or 2 clubs where I kind of feel like I have some equity, or even better, 3 clubs. Like, we just exhausted the entire list of potential flops that you feel good with.
Right.
And those are kind of bad things when you can do that. And
I completely agree.
another king queen, another raise. I'm probably still just giving this up, unfortunately. Yeah. And it goes to like a lot of these hands that we're like seeing is you being forced to play out of position and getting into kind of crappy spots. And it seems like in total, like those are adding up to like kind of hurt you.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And I think one of the things I need to, I think that all of these are clear opens, but I need to be more capable of letting them go.
Yeah, very much agree. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Like I said, this like PFR, VPIP, race first in that you have, like all seems well. 3-bet's probably close to being right in terms of what that should be for middle position. It's just like this folding to 3-bet, because if you think about it, like you're leveling yourself into calling, and you're leveling yourself into playing out of position when you don't need to.
Right.
Like position is a huge thing. Like, where are you making the most money from? Your button and cutoff, because you have position, because you can 3-bet people more. I was gonna show one more thing here quick, doing the same stuff that we were looking at before. So you did a 2-bet, you faced a 3-bet, and it was you in the hand. Like, your win rate in this spot is -87. Like, in general, it's going to be negative because people 3-bet you with a tight range and with good hands, and it's usually better than what your opening range is. But this is just a very, very low number. Middle position, like, you being only -20 is one of the better ones. But at least it like shined the light on like what's going on.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, we could, like, it's low sample size, you know, we're talking about 200 hands that you got 3-bet on, but yeah, I would, you got to trust some people, Chris.
I know. I really do. And I've got to get the hands that I'm kind of addicted to the idea of when I'm 3-bet and I have like a Jack 10 of diamonds or whatever, and it's just like, but you may have a strong hand now, but look at me after the flop. You know, there's like this like. And like, I want them to have aces in that spot. You know, I want the crushing whatever, and I've got to just play more disciplined in those spots rather than.
Yeah, I mean, so we'll go back to the start. You're winning 10.8 big blinds per 100, and so you're crushing. Like, you're doing so well in so many spots that your EV spots that for normal person would be a small amount are that slightly higher, which means when you get into a spot that is such like slight EV or 0 to slightly negative EV, when you take those spots, it really hurts your game, because you're doing so much better in other spots that when you take those spots, it's dragging you down. Yeah.
And it kills your chips. I mean, you just saw all those chip stacks. I had some of those in those spots. I had pretty decent chip stacks. I had, 30, 40, 50 big blinds. And yeah, you're melting away chips. And all of those examples we saw, except for the ones where I was smashing the flop, I would call the 3-bet and then I would fold on the flop. And I've given away, a big chunk of my stack. So
yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I will pay attention to this now.
Yeah. No, they like, again, like, good stuff in here. I think there's just like a few things that if you did, so try and be a little bit more aggressive from the big blind. Trust people a little bit more when they're 3-betting you. And then I would task yourself to try and figure out why your river calling is so efficient, if you're potentially missing out on something there.
Cool. Yeah, those are all really good, and part of which I think I've identified myself, but I think that middle position thing is something I need to think about even more, because I think I've been thinking about turn bets, river bets, and my big blind play, but I think I've been not as focused on the middle position stuff. So
yeah,
that's good stuff. Thank you for this.
Yeah, no problem. Let me know how it turns out. Like, if you think you're seeing improvements and stuff like that. I'm always interested in how stuff goes.
So, thanks for joining me for this little peek behind the curtain at Taylor Moss's coaching sample with Chris Jones. It's great to see what you can do with Poker Tracker 4 and just a little practice. A lot of the stuff you can do at home yourself. Some self study is always a valuable choice, no matter where you are in your evolution as a poker player. If you do want to find out more about Taylor and his coaching and the way he thinks about poker, you can go to rec.poker/Taylor Moss. And you can check out his Wrecking Crew page there. All the Wrecking Crew members have a Wrecking Crew page. You can learn more about Taylor. Chris Jones is rec.poker/Chris Jones. You can go to rec.poker/Jim Reed to find out about me, or you can just email me, jim@rec.poker. And if you'd like to be paired up with a member of the Wrecking Crew to talk poker next month, send me that email and we'll make it happen. But until then, I just want to shout out again Website Amp, Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino, and to say thanks a lot to Taylor and Chris, and we'll see all y'all again sometime soon. Bye-bye.